I was standing at the head of the table, birthday cake in hand, when my girlfriend, Sarah, stood up and gestured to my empty chair. "Marcus, why don't you sit here?" she said, her voice honey-sweet as she smiled at the man beside her. "You'll have a better view of everyone." Marcus Chen, her work colleague, the same Marcus who'd been texting her at midnight, the same Marcus whose Instagram she liked within seconds of him posting, the same Marcus who looked at me right now with barely concealed amusement as he slid into my seat. The seat at the head of the table, the seat reserved for the birthday boy at his own goddamn celebration. "Sarah," I said quietly, still holding the cake, "that's my seat." She laughed. That particular laugh she'd developed over the past 3 months, the one that made me feel small. "Don't be childish, David. It's just a chair. Sit anywhere. Here, take my seat." Her seat was at the corner, barely visible to half the table, wedged between her mother, who'd never liked me, and her drunk uncle who smelled like cigars and made inappropriate comments. Around the table, 12 people stared at me. Sarah's family, her friends, the colleagues from her law firm she'd insisted I invite. Not one person from my side. She'd convinced me to keep it intimate, since my family lived 3 states away, and my college friends were probably too busy anyway. "It's fine," I heard myself say, the words tasting like ash. "I'll sit at the corner." Marcus smirked as he settled into my chair, stretching out like he owned it. He was everything I wasn't, 6'3", square-jawed, wearing a suit that cost more than my monthly rent. He worked at his family's investment firm. Work colleague, my ass. I set the cake down and moved to the corner seat. Sarah's mother didn't even look at me as I sat down. "Now that we're all settled," Sarah announced, standing up with her wine glass raised, "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. It's so wonderful to have all my favorite people in one place." My favorite people. At my birthday dinner. She didn't mention me. Not once in her entire toast. "And special thanks to Marcus for making time in his incredibly busy schedule," she continued, touching his shoulder as she spoke. Her hand lingered there. "He just closed a $50 million deal this week. $50 million! Can you imagine?" The table erupted in congratulations. Marcus waved it off with false modesty. "Just doing my job," he said. Then his eyes found mine across the table, and I saw it. The calculation, the assessment, the dismissal. I was nothing to him. Less than nothing. The waiter came around for orders. Sarah ordered the most expensive item on the menu, the Wagyu steak with the truffle butter. So did Marcus. So did her mother, her 2 sisters, her brother-in-law, and most of the table. I watched the prices add up in my head. The restaurant I'd chosen, per Sarah's insistence, averaged $200 per person, before drinks. When the waiter got to me, I ordered the cheapest pasta on the menu. "That's all?" Sarah called out from across the table. "It's your birthday, David. Live a little." More laughter. I was the joke. I pulled out my phone under the table and opened my banking app. The one connected to my trust fund. The one Sarah didn't know about. Balance? $47,000. I'd been hiding it for 2 years. When we met, I was working as a software developer at a mid-sized tech company, making decent money but nothing spectacular. I lived in a modest apartment, drove a used Honda, wore clothes from outlet stores. I wanted someone to love me for me, not for my grandfather's fortune. My grandfather, William Thornwell, had founded one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the country. When he died 5 years ago, he left everything to me. His only grandson. The will stipulated I couldn't touch the principal until I was 30, but I'd been living comfortably off the interest, keeping up my middle-class facade, watching and waiting to find someone real. I thought Sarah was real. For the first 6 months, she was perfect, attentive, loving, interested in my work, my thoughts, my dreams. We talked for hours. She said she didn't care about money. She was making her own way as a junior associate at her law firm, and she was proud of her independence. Then she made senior associate. Then she started meeting clients like Marcus. Then the texts got later, the dinners got fancier, and I got convenient. Someone to pay her rent when she was between bonuses. Someone to fix her car, her computer, her life while she was too busy with work. Someone to celebrate her promotions, her wins, her successes. But my birthday? At my own birthday dinner, she gave my seat to another man. The food came. I watched them eat their expensive steaks, drink their $100 wine bottles, laugh at Marcus's stories about his yacht and his Tesla and his crazy weekend in Monaco. Sarah hung on every word, her hand somehow always finding his arm, his shoulder, his hand. No one asked me about my day. No one asked about my work. No one asked me anything at all. When dessert came, the cake I'd specifically requested, chocolate with raspberry filling, Sarah cut the first slice and handed it to Marcus. "The birthday boy should get the first slice," Marcus said with that same smirk. "Oh, David won't mind," Sarah said quickly. "He's not big on sweets anyway. Are you, honey?" Chocolate raspberry was my favorite. She knew that. We'd been together for 2 years, and she knew that. I stood up. Every eye turned to me. "Excuse me," I said. "I need to use the restroom." I walked past the table, past the bar, to the back of the restaurant where the manager's office was located. I'd called ahead 3 days ago, had a conversation with the owner, made certain arrangements. Just in case. Just in case Sarah proved to be exactly what I'd feared she was becoming. This manager, Roberto, saw me coming and nodded. "Mr. Thornwell." Sarah didn't know my full name. I'd introduced myself as David Worth when we met. Worth was my mother's maiden name, and I'd been using it professionally to avoid the connection to my grandfather's fortune. All my credit cards said Worth. My lease said Worth. My work badge said Worth. But Roberto knew exactly who I was. Because 3 days ago, I'd bought his restaurant. Not this location, the entire chain. 7 high-end restaurants across the city, including this flagship location. Cost me $18 million, but it was a solid investment, and I'd been looking to diversify my portfolio anyway. "Everything's ready?" I asked. "Yes, sir. The bill is prepared as you requested." "And the other matter?" "The security footage has been reviewed. The gentleman, Marcus Chen, parked in the handicapped spot without a permit. We've already called it in. Tow truck should be here within the hour, and there's a $500 fine." I smiled. Perfect. I returned to the table. They were on their 3rd bottle of wine now, faces flushed, voices loud. Sarah was sitting on Marcus's lap. On his lap. In public. At my birthday dinner. Her mother saw me first. She at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. Sarah noticed her mother's expression and glanced over, then quickly scrambled off Marcus's lap. "David! There you are. Marcus was just telling the funniest story about—" "The check, please," I said to the waiter who'd been hovering nearby. The waiter brought over the bill in a leather folder. I didn't open it. I knew exactly what it said. $4,047.32. I pulled out my credit card, my regular David Worth card, not one of my Thornwell cards, and handed it to the waiter. "David, wait," Sarah said, suddenly attentive. "We can split it. That's way too much for you to—" "I've got it," I said. The waiter ran the card and brought it back. I signed, added a $1,000 tip for having to watch this train wreck, and stood up. "Thank you all for coming," I said. My voice was steady, calm. I appreciate you taking the time to celebrate with me. Sarah stood up too, slightly unsteady from the wine. Where are you going? We were going to do karaoke next. Marcus said he'd pay for... I'm leaving. But it's your birthday. You can't just watch me. I walked toward the exit. Behind me, I heard Sarah's heels clicking as she tried to follow. David, wait. Don't be like this. You're being so dramatic. It was just a chair. And Marcus he's just a friend. You're being paranoid and insecure and... I stopped at the door and turned to face her. The entire restaurant was watching now. Good. I paid for your meal, I said quietly. I paid for everyone's meal. I made sure you and your friends and Marcus had a wonderful evening. And in return, you gave away my seat at my own birthday dinner, ignored me for 3 hours, and sat on another man's lap. Her face flushed. It wasn't like that. You're twisting everything. This is exactly why I... She stopped herself, but I knew how that sentence ended. This is exactly why I've been looking for someone else. Enjoy your night, Sarah, I said. Consider this my gift to you. One last free meal. I walked out into the cool night air. Behind me, I heard Sarah shouting my name, but I didn't turn around. I got into my Honda, which I'd be replacing tomorrow with something more appropriate to my actual station in life, and drove home to my modest apartment, which I'd also be leaving tomorrow, because I was done pretending. I'd spent 2 years being David Worth, the nice guy, the convenient boyfriend, the one who was just successful enough to be useful, but not successful enough to be impressive. I'd wanted authenticity. I'd wanted real love. Instead, I got humiliated at my own birthday party. My phone started buzzing with texts before I even got home. Sarah, you're being ridiculous. Sarah, everyone thinks you're crazy. Sarah, Marcus was just being nice. Sarah, I can't believe you embarrassed me like that. Sarah, we need to talk about your jealousy issues. I blocked her number. Then I called my lawyer, James Morrison, partner at the biggest firm in the city. It was 11 p.m., but James answered on the second ring. That's what happens when you pay someone a $20,000 monthly retainer. David, he said, happy birthday. I need you to do something for me. Name it. Sarah Mitchell, senior associate at Weatherby & Klein. I want you to find out everything about her. Her cases, her clients, her billable hours, everything. How deep? Deep enough to know if she's been doing anything that could be considered a conflict of interest, ethics violation, or professional misconduct. James was quiet for a moment. That kind of deep. What am I looking for specifically? Marcus Chen. His family's investment firm is Chen Capital Partners. I want to know if there's any connection between Sarah's legal work and Marcus's business dealings. Any overlap that might be problematic. You think she's been feeding him confidential information? I think she's been spending a lot of time with a man who could benefit significantly from knowing about her firm's clients and their legal strategies. I think she's ambitious enough to blur some lines if it meant advancing her career. And I think 3 months ago, right when she started getting distant, is right when she started working on the Morrison Pharmaceuticals merger. James whistled. The Morrison deal. That's a $100 million merger. If Chen Capital knew about it before it was public, they'd know exactly which stocks to buy and short. They'd make millions. Tens of millions. That's insider trading, David. That's prison time. I know. Start digging. And James, keep it quiet. I don't want her to know we're looking until we have everything. Understood. I'll have something for you in 48 hours. I hung up and sat in my car in my apartment parking lot, staring at the steering wheel. 2 years. I'd wasted 2 years trying to be someone I wasn't, trying to find authentic love by hiding my authentic self. The irony wasn't lost on me. My phone buzzed again. A new number, probably Sarah calling from someone else's phone. I answered. David, Jesus Christ, what the hell is wrong with you? It was Sarah's sister, Jennifer. Sarah is crying. She's completely devastated. How could you just leave like that? Did she tell you she sat on Marcus's lap? Silence. Did she tell you she gave my seat, at my own birthday dinner, to another man? More silence. Jennifer, I paid almost $5,000 for tonight. I sat at the corner, ignored by everyone, while your sister flirted with Marcus Chen for 3 hours, so you'll forgive me if I'm not particularly concerned about her feelings right now. She said you were overreacting. She said Marcus was just, goodbye, Jennifer. I blocked that number too. My apartment felt empty when I walked in. Sarah had a key. We'd been talking about moving in together, though every time I brought up actually signing a lease, she found a reason to delay. Now I knew why. She'd been keeping her options open. I deadbolted the door, poured myself 2 fingers of scotch, the good stuff I kept hidden in the back of my cabinet, the $3,000 bottle my grandfather had given me before he died, and sat on my couch. Tomorrow, my new life would begin. Tonight, I mourned the death of David Worth, the man who wanted to be loved for who he was, rather than what he had. That man was gone. David Thornwell was back. And David Thornwell didn't forgive humiliation. I woke up at 6 a.m. to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages from various numbers. Sarah was determined. I had to give her that. I deleted them all without reading and went for a run. 5 miles through the city, watching the sunrise, clearing my head. When I got back, I showered, shaved, and opened my closet. In the very back, behind the Old Navy t-shirts and Gap khakis, was a garment bag I hadn't touched in 2 years. Inside was a Tom Ford suit, custom-tailored, midnight blue with peak lapels. It had cost $8,000. I put it on. It fit perfectly. I looked in the mirror and saw my grandfather staring back at me. Same sharp jawline, same intense blue eyes, same presence that commanded attention. "Hello, old friend," I said to my reflection. My phone rang. Not Sarah. James. "That was fast," I answered. "You were right," James said without preamble. "Sarah Mitchell has been working on the Morrison Pharmaceuticals merger for the past 4 months. Weatherby and Klein are representing Morrison in the deal. And guess what? 3 months ago, Chen Capital Partners suddenly started buying Morrison stock and shorting their competitor, Braxton Medical." "How much did they make?" "We can't prove exact numbers yet, but based on stock movements and the timing of trades, I'd estimate Chen Capital cleared somewhere between $8 and $12 million. Jesus. It gets better. Sarah has been having regular lunches with Marcus Chen. I've got credit card records showing they've eaten together at least twice a week for the past 3 months. Always at high-end restaurants, always charged to Marcus's corporate card as client development. But Morrison isn't Chen Capital's client. Exactly. So why would he be buying lunch for a lawyer working on a competitor's deal? Because she's feeding him information. That would be my guess. But here's the problem. We need proof. We need emails, texts, recorded conversations, something that directly ties Sarah's information to Marcus's trades. I thought for a moment. What if we gave them something to trade on? Something fake? You want to set a trap. I want to catch them red-handed. Can you do it? James laughed. "David, I've been practicing law for 30 years. Setting traps is my favorite part of the job. What did you have in mind? I need to make a few calls first. I'll get back to you in an hour. I hung up and pulled up my contact list. Hidden at the very bottom, under a string of random numbers so Sarah would never accidentally find it, was a name. Richard Morrison. Richard Morrison, CEO of Morrison Pharmaceuticals, also known as Uncle Rick, my grandfather's best friend and my godfather. He answered immediately. David, happy belated birthday. I'm so sorry I missed your party. Barbara had that charity thing in Boston and, Uncle Rick, I need a favor. His tone shifted instantly. What do you need? I told him everything. The birthday dinner, Sarah, Marcus Chen, the insider trading, the plan. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. That little bitch, he finally said. Pardon my language, but Christ, David, you've been dating her for 2 years and she does this? On your birthday? I need your help to prove she's been leaking information about the merger. You've got it, whatever you need. That little punk at Chen Capital cost us millions in stock manipulation. We knew someone was trading on inside information, but we couldn't figure out who. If it's that Mitchell woman, David will bury her. I don't want burial just yet. First, I want confession. Here's what I'm thinking. An hour later, I had the whole plan laid out. James was ready. Uncle Rick was ready. All we needed now was bait. I unblocked Sarah's number and sent her a text. Me. We need to talk. She responded within 30 seconds. Sarah. Oh, thank God. David, I'm so sorry about last night. I was drunk and stupid, and Marcus was just being friendly, and I didn't realize how it looked. Can you come over, please? Me. Not your place. Coffee shop on 5th and Madison. 1 hour. Sarah. I'll be there. Thank you for giving me another chance. Love you. I stared at those 3 words. I love you. And felt nothing. I put on my Tom Ford suit, my Patek Philippe watch, another gift from my grandfather, worth more than most cars, and my Italian leather shoes. Then I looked in the mirror one more time. David Worth was gone. Time for Sarah to meet David Thornwell. The coffee shop was deliberately chosen. Glass windows, busy street corner, lots of witnesses. I wanted this public. I arrived 15 minutes early and ordered a black coffee, then settled into a corner table with a perfect view of the entrance. Sarah arrived exactly on time. She was dressed carefully, not too provocative, not too casual. The perfect I'm sorry outfit. A cream sweater, dark jeans, minimal makeup to show she'd been crying. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but I'd bet money they were from stress, not actual tears. She saw me and stopped dead. I watched her eyes travel from my shoes to my watch, to my suit, to my face. Watched her do the math. Watched her realize that the man sitting in front of her was not the David she knew. David? She said uncertainly. Sit down, Sarah. She sat, her movements careful, calculated. You look different. That's a really nice suit. Is it new? Did you buy it for... Let's skip the small talk. Her face crumpled into an expression of remorse. I'm so sorry about last night. I was completely out of line. I don't know what I was thinking. Marcus is he's just a colleague, and I got caught up in the moment and the wine, and how long have you been sleeping with him? She jerked back like I'd slapped her. What? We're not... Don't lie to me, Sarah. I'm done with lies. I'm not lying. Her voice rose, drawing looks from other patrons. She lowered it immediately. Marcus and I are just friends. Yes, we've gotten close over the past few months, but that's because we work together on some projects and... What projects? You're a lawyer at Weatherby and Klein. He's at Chen Capital. What projects could you possibly work on together? She hesitated. Just for a second. But I saw it. Networking, she said finally. He's been helping me develop business contacts. You know how important networking is in my field. Right. Networking. Is that what you call it when you feed him confidential information about your firm's clients? All the color drained from her face. I don't know what you're talking about. I pulled out my phone and opened it to an email James had sent me an hour ago. I turned it so Sarah could see. This is a trading pattern analysis. 3 months ago, right when you started working on the Morrison Pharmaceuticals merger, Chen Capital made several strategic stock purchases and shorts that perfectly aligned with information that was not yet public. They made approximately $10 million. That's just coincidence. Marcus is a good investor. He had lunch with you 47 times in the past 3 months. Twice a week, every week, always the day before major trading moves. Her hands were shaking now. You've been following me? I've been protecting myself from a woman who's been using me while she builds a relationship with a richer, more successful man. A woman who's been committing serious federal crimes to impress him. This is insane. You're paranoid. Just because I had lunch with a colleague, here's what's going to happen, I interrupted. You're going to tell me the truth. All of it. How long you've been seeing Marcus, what information you've been giving him, what he promised you in return. Everything. And if I don't? I leaned forward. Then I take this evidence to the SEC, the State Bar Association, and your employer. Marcus goes to prison for insider trading. You lose your license and probably go to prison for conspiracy. And your career, the career you've been so carefully building, the career you were willing to betray me for, ends in disgrace. You wouldn't. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Try me. We sat in silence for a long moment. I could see her mind racing, trying to find an angle, a way out, a strategy. Finally, she slumped in her chair. 4 months, she whispered. We've been together for 4 months. There it was. The truth. And somehow, hearing her say it out loud hurt less than I expected. Maybe because I'd already known. Maybe because I'd already grieved the relationship I thought we had. When? I asked. The Morrison case started, and Marcus reached out. He said he wanted to talk about potential collaboration between our firms. We had lunch. He was charming and funny and successful. Really successful. He told me about his deals, his lifestyle, his plans, and he made me feel important, like I mattered. And I didn't make you feel important? She had the decency to look ashamed. You did. But David, you're a software developer. You make good money, sure, but Marcus he's on another level. He takes me to places I could never afford. He introduces me to people who can change my career. He sees my potential. So you sold him confidential information about your firm's biggest case. It wasn't like that. He asked casual questions about how mergers work, about regulatory processes. I didn't realize he was using the information to trade until it was too late. And then I was in too deep. He said we were a team. He said we'd build something together. He promised me a partnership at his firm once I finished my law requirements. And me? She looked away. You were supposed to be temporary, a nice guy to date while I figured out my life. But you were so persistent, so devoted, and it was easier to keep you around than to break up and deal with the drama. You were useful. Useful. That word echoed in my head. I'd paid her rent, fixed her car, supported her through her bar exam, celebrated her promotions, loved her unconditionally. And I was useful. Last night, I said quietly, at my own birthday dinner, you sat on his lap. She flinched. I was drunk. It didn't mean anything. It meant everything. It meant you cared so little about me, about my feelings, about basic human decency, that you humiliated me in front of everyone. You gave away my seat to your lover at my own birthday celebration. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I know I fucked up. But David, we can fix this. I'll end things with Marcus. I'll be faithful. I'll make it up to you, I swear. I stood up. No, Sarah, we're done. Consider this conversation your warning. If you or Marcus make any more trades based on inside information, I'll destroy both of you. Are we clear? Wait! She grabbed my arm. David, please, don't do this. I love you. I made a mistake. But I love you. I looked down at her hand on my arm, then at her face. She was crying now. Real tears this time. Tears of panic and fear and regret. You don't love me, I said. You love what I represented. Security, safety, a backup plan. But Sarah, you backed the wrong horse. I pulled my arm away and walked out of the coffee shop. Behind me, I heard her calling my name, her voice breaking. I didn't turn around. Phase 1 was complete. Sarah knew I was onto her. Now came Phase 2, the trap. I spent the rest of the week executing my plan. First stop, my apartment. The landlord was surprised, but delighted when I offered to buy out my lease. 6 months of rent, paid in full, just to be free of it immediately. Then I visited a realtor. By Friday, I'd purchased a penthouse in the most exclusive building in the city. 42nd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, 3,000 square feet of pure luxury. Cost, $8 million, paid in cash. I hired an interior designer who'd worked with celebrities and tech billionaires. I want it done in 2 weeks, I told her. Money is no object. She blinked. Mr. Thornwell, most projects like this take months. 2 weeks. I'll pay triple your usual rate. 2 weeks it is. Next, the car. The Honda went to a charity auction. I replaced it with a Tesla Model S Plaid and a vintage Porsche 911 for weekends. Combined cost, $300,000. New wardrobe, $50,000 at the best clothiers in the city. New phone number, unlisted, unhackable, given only to people I trusted. In 1 week, I transformed from David Worth to David Thornwell. But the most important transformation was happening behind the scenes. James called me Friday night. It's ready. The bait? Golden. Uncle Rick is going to announce a new drug trial Monday morning. A cancer treatment that could be worth billions. It's completely fabricated, but the press release looks real. The SEC filings look real. Everything looks real. And here's the best part. We're going to leak the information to Weatherby and Klein on Sunday night, marked as confidential and for attorney review only. And you think Sarah will tell Marcus? I guarantee it. She's desperate now. You broke up with her? She's terrified you'll report her, and her relationship with Marcus is her only safety net. She'll tell him about the drug trial to prove she's still valuable to him. And when Marcus trades on it Monday morning? We'll have him dead to rights. The SEC has already been briefed. They're watching his accounts. The moment he makes a move, they'll freeze everything and start an investigation. We'll have proof of insider trading, proof of Sarah's involvement, everything. What about the firm? Weatherby and Klein? There'll be collateral damage, unfortunately. But honestly, David, they should have better security protocols. This is their failure as much as Sarah's. I thought about that. Innocent people would be hurt. The firm would suffer. Other lawyers, assistants, staff who had nothing to do with Sarah's betrayal would face consequences. But then I thought about sitting in that corner seat, watching Sarah laugh at Marcus's jokes, feeling invisible and worthless at my own birthday dinner. Do it, I said. Sunday night, the leak went out. James sent it from a partner's email account at 11 p.m., late enough that most people wouldn't check until Monday morning, but early enough that Sarah, who was known for working late, would see it. We monitored her computer activity remotely. At 11:47 p.m., she opened the email. At 11:53 p.m., she forwarded it to her personal email account, a major violation of firm policy. At 12:08 a.m., her phone records showed a call to Marcus Chen, lasting 17 minutes. "Got her," James said over the phone. "She took the bait. Now we wait." Monday morning, I dressed in my best suit and drove to Morrison Pharmaceuticals headquarters. Uncle Rick had given me an office. Technically, I was on the board of directors, a position I'd held since inheriting my grandfather's shares, but never actually exercised. At 9:30 a.m., Morrison Pharmaceuticals released the press statement about the revolutionary new cancer drug trial. The stock price immediately jumped 15%. At 9:33 a.m., Chen Capital Partners placed a massive buy order, $8 million worth of Morrison stock. At 9:35 a.m., the SEC froze the transaction and Chen Capital's trading accounts. At 9:40 a.m., federal agents walked into Chen Capital Partners with a warrant. James called me at 9:45 a.m. "It's done. They got him. Marcus Chen is being detained for questioning, and the SEC has opened a formal investigation into insider trading. They're also bringing in Sarah Mitchell for questioning." I allowed myself a smile. "Good. David, this is going to be huge. We're talking major news coverage, criminal charges, prison time. Are you sure you want to go through with this?" "Yes. Once this goes public, there's no taking it back. Sarah's career is over. Marcus could face 10 years in federal prison. The law firm might collapse from the scandal." I thought about my seat, my birthday, my 2 years of authentic love met with calculated betrayal. "I'm sure." The news broke that afternoon. Financial networks ran it as their lead story. Chen Capital Heir arrested for insider trading. By evening, the major networks picked it up. By Tuesday morning, Sarah's name was everywhere. The articles were brutal. Senior associate at prestigious law firm allegedly leaked confidential client information. Lawyer and investor's romantic relationship led to massive securities fraud. From promising attorney to federal defendant, the fall of Sarah Mitchell. My phone started ringing off the hook. Old friends I hadn't talked to in years, colleagues from my software job, even my parents calling from their retirement in Florida. "David, sweetheart, we just saw the news," my mother said. "That poor girl you were dating, Sarah, the lawyer, they're saying she's involved in some kind of scandal." "She is." "Oh no, are you okay? Were you two still together when—" "Mom, I'm fine. Actually, I'm better than fine. We broke up last week." "Oh, thank God. Can you imagine if you'd still been with her when all this came out? The press would be hounding you." I smiled. The press had no idea who David Worth was. They didn't know about my relationship with Sarah. And by the time anyone made the connection, if they ever did, I'd be long gone from that part of my life. "Actually, Mom, there's something I need to tell you. I'm not David Worth anymore. I'm going by Thornwell again." Silence on the other end of the line. You're coming out of hiding?" "Yeah, it's time." "Oh, honey," I heard her voice crack. "Your grandfather would be so proud." "I hope so." We talked for another hour. She wanted to know everything. Why now, what changed, what my plans were. I told her about the birthday dinner, though I left out the parts about my revenge. She didn't need to know all the details. That afternoon, I had a meeting at Morrison Pharmaceuticals. The board wanted a debrief on the situation with Chen Capital and the fake drug trial. I walked into the boardroom in my Tom Ford suit, my Patek Philippe watch, my Italian leather briefcase. 12 of the most powerful people in the pharmaceutical industry sat around a mahogany table. and every eye turned to me as I entered. "Gentlemen, ladies," Uncle Rick said from the head of the table, "I believe most of you know my godson, David Thornwell, though he's been keeping a low profile these past few years. David recently assisted us in uncovering a significant securities fraud case involving our merger. David, would you like to brief the board?" I stood at the front of the room and told them everything. The insider trading, the investigation, the sting operation. When I finished, the board members looked at each other, then back at me. "Impressive work," said Margaret Chen, no relation to Marcus. She was the head of R&D and the sharpest person in the room. "We've been trying to figure out who was leaking information for months. You solved it in a week." I had motivation. "Personal involvement?" "You could say that." She nodded slowly, understanding written on her face. "Well, regardless of your motivations, you've saved this company millions of dollars and protected our merger. The board is grateful." "Actually," Uncle Rick interjected, "we'd like to discuss something with you, David. Your grandfather held a seat on this board for 40 years. Since his passing, that seat has been vacant out of respect. But the board has been discussing whether it's time to fill it. Would you be interested?" I looked around the table. These were serious people. Powerful people. This wasn't a token position. This was real influence, real responsibility. "I'm honored," I said, "but I should mention that my background is in software development, not pharmaceuticals." "Your grandfather was a history teacher before he founded this company," Margaret said. "He learned the pharmaceutical industry because he had to. We're not looking for another chemist or researcher. We have plenty of those. We're looking for fresh perspective, business acumen, and someone who understands the modern tech landscape. From what I've seen, you have all three." "Then yes," I said. "I accept." Uncle Rick smiled. "Welcome to the board, David. Your grandfather would be proud." For the first time since my birthday dinner, I felt something other than anger or betrayal. I felt purpose. The legal proceedings moved quickly. Marcus Chen, facing overwhelming evidence, took a plea deal, 5 years in federal prison, 10 million in fines, and a lifetime ban from securities trading. His family disowned him publicly to protect their business. Sarah's case was more complicated. As the one who'd actually leaked the information, she faced more serious charges. Her lawyer tried to argue she'd been manipulated by Marcus, that she was a victim of his influence. The prosecution wasn't buying it. Ms. Mitchell knowingly and repeatedly violated attorney-client privilege to enrich herself and her romantic partner, the prosecutor argued. She betrayed her firm, her clients, and the legal profession. This wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated pattern of criminal behavior spanning months. The trial was set for October. In the meantime, Sarah was released on bail, but disbarred pending the outcome. Her legal career was over before it had really begun. Weatherby and Klein suffered too. The scandal cost them 3 major clients and resulted in a complete overhaul of their data security and ethics training. Several senior partners quietly retired. I watched it all unfold from my new penthouse, surrounded by my new furniture, living my new life. And I felt empty. I'd gotten my revenge. I'd exposed them both. Justice was being served. But every night, I sat in my massive apartment alone and wondered if it was worth it. The answer came on a Wednesday evening in late August, 3 months after my birthday disaster. I was working in my home office. I'd taken a position as a consultant for Morrison Pharmaceuticals' digital transformation project, combining my tech background with my new board role, when my doorman called. "Mr. Thornwell, there's a young woman here to see you. She says her name is Jennifer Mitchell." Sarah's sister. "Send her up." I waited by the door. When Jennifer stepped out of the elevator, she looked smaller than I remembered. thinner, tired.
"David,"
she said.
"thank you for seeing me."
"Come in." She walked into my apartment and stopped, taking in the space.
"Jesus, this is really you? This is really me. I don't understand. You lived in that tiny apartment. You drove a Honda. You worked at that software company. And now you're—"
She gestured around helplessly. "I was hiding," I said simply. "I wanted to know if someone could love me for who I was, not what I had. And Sarah failed the test spectacularly." Jennifer sat down on my couch without being invited. "She's a mess, David. Completely falling apart. No job, no license, facing prison time. Our parents are devastated. I'm devastated. And she just keeps saying it's all her fault, that she destroyed the best thing that ever happened to her." "She did. I know. Believe me, I know. What she did to you was unforgivable. I told her that. But David, I'm not here to ask you to forgive her or take her back or anything like that." "Then why are you here?" "I'm here to tell you that you won. You absolutely, completely won. You exposed her, destroyed her career, sent her boyfriend to prison, and revealed yourself to be some kind of secret millionaire the whole time. It's the most epic revenge story I've ever heard. But I look at you right now in this amazing apartment with all this success and power, and you look just as miserable as she does." I didn't respond. "She destroyed herself," Jennifer continued. "You didn't have to do anything. The truth would have come out eventually. But you made sure it came out in the most devastating way possible. And I get it, I really do. What she did to you was cruel and calculating. But David, when does it end? When do you get to be happy instead of vindictive?" "I'm not vindictive. You bought a restaurant just to watch her humiliate herself at your birthday dinner." I blinked. "How did you—" "I'm not an idiot. I put it together. And honestly, that level of planning, that level of patience and precision in your revenge, it's impressive. But it's also kind of scary." She stood up to leave. "Sarah's moving back home with our parents," she said. "She'll probably go to prison for a year or two, maybe less with good behavior. When she gets out, she'll have to rebuild her entire life from scratch. And you'll still be here, in your penthouse, on your board, living your successful life. You won, David. Completely and totally. Just hope it was worth it." She left before I could respond. I stood there in my empty apartment, surrounded by expensive furniture and floor-to-ceiling windows and all the trappings of success, and I realized Jennifer was right. I was miserable. I'd spent 3 months orchestrating the perfect revenge, and I hadn't spent a single moment thinking about what came after. What did come after? I threw myself into work. The board position at Morrison Pharmaceuticals became my obsession. I pushed digital transformation projects, modernized supply chains, implemented new data security measures. I worked 16-hour days, came home exhausted, slept, and did it again. Uncle Rick noticed. "David," he said after a board meeting in late September, "can we talk?" We went to his office. He poured us both scotch, the same brand my grandfather used to drink, and we sat in leather chairs by the window. "You're burning out," he said. "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're running from something." I took a long drink. "Her trial starts next week." "Ah." "The prosecutor called me. They want me to testify about our relationship, about how she used me to get information. They want to paint a picture of calculated manipulation. And you don't want to do it." "I don't know what I want anymore." Uncle Rick was quiet for a long moment. "Your grandfather," he finally said, "told me once that the hardest part about having money and power isn't getting it. It's deciding what kind of person you want to be when you have it. He'd seen too many rich men become cruel, vindictive, petty, using their resources to hurt people instead of help them. Sarah hurt me first. She did, and you hurt her back, with interest. The question is, what now? Do you want to be the kind of man who destroys people, or do you want to be the kind of man who builds things? I'm building. The digital transformation project. You're hiding in work the same way you hid in poverty. You're still not being yourself, David. You're still pretending. Then who am I supposed to be? He smiled. That's the question, isn't it? And you're the only one who can answer it. Sarah's trial began on October 15th. I attended the opening arguments, sitting in the back of the courtroom, watching her walk in with her lawyer. She'd changed. Lost weight, cut her hair short, wore no makeup. She looked broken. The prosecutor laid out the case. 37 instances of leaked confidential information, $10 million in illegal profits, systematic betrayal of attorney-client privilege. The evidence was overwhelming. Sarah's lawyer tried to argue diminished capacity, manipulation, mental health issues. The judge wasn't having it. When they called me to testify, I walked to the stand and swore to tell the truth. The prosecutor asked me about our relationship, how we met, how long we'd been together, how I'd supported her. Mr. Thornwell, did you have any knowledge of Ms. Mitchell's activities with Marcus Chen? No. When did you first become suspicious? When she started spending more time with him than with me. And how did that make you feel? Sarah's lawyer objected. Relevance? I'm establishing a pattern of deception, Your Honor. Overruled. Answer the question, Mr. Thornwell. I looked at Sarah. She was staring at the table, refusing to meet my eyes. It made me feel invisible, I said quietly. Like I didn't matter. Like 2 years of my life had been wasted on someone who saw me as useful. The courtroom was silent. And when you discovered the extent of her activities? I felt betrayed, humiliated, angry. Angry enough to orchestrate an elaborate sting operation? I hesitated. This was the moment. I could tell the truth, that I'd set up the fake drug trial specifically to catch Sarah and Marcus, that my revenge had been calculated and precise, or I could lie. I wanted justice, I said. I wanted her to face consequences for what she'd done. But the sting operation wasn't about revenge. It was about protecting Morrison Pharmaceuticals and stopping ongoing criminal activity. It was technically true, even if it wasn't the whole truth. The prosecutor nodded. No further questions. Sarah's lawyer stood up for cross-examination. Mr. Thornwell, isn't it true that you were secretly wealthy the entire time you dated my client? Yes. And you deliberately hid this fact from her? Yes. So you were lying to her about your identity, your resources, your entire life. How is that different from what she did? I never committed any crimes. But you were being deceptive. You were testing her, weren't you? Seeing if she'd love you without money? I wanted to be loved for who I was, not what I had. And when she failed your test, you decided to destroy her life. Objection! The prosecutor jumped up. Argumentative. Sustained. But the damage was done. The lawyer had planted the seed. I was the one with the power. I was the one who'd set everything in motion. I was the one who could have stopped this at any time. Was I the villain in this story? The trial lasted 3 weeks. In the end, Sarah was found guilty on 7 counts of securities fraud and conspiracy to commit insider trading. The judge sentenced her to 2 years in federal prison, 5 years probation, and ordered her to pay $500,000 in restitution. She'd be released in 18 months with good behavior. I watched her being led away in handcuffs, And I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No vindication. Nothing. Jennifer found me outside the courthouse. "Happy now?" she asked. "No." "Good. Because she's not the only one who's going to prison, David. You're going to be in your own kind of prison. Guilt, anger, loneliness. You can't buy your way out of that." She walked away. I stood there on the courthouse steps, watching people stream past, living their normal lives, and I realized Jennifer was right. I was in prison. A prison of my own making. 3 weeks after the sentencing, I was working late at Morrison Pharmaceuticals when my assistant buzzed me. "Mr. Thornwell, there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important." "Who is it?" "Her name is Amanda Gray." I didn't recognize the name. "Does she say what this is about?" "She says she's from the Federal Public Defender's Office. She's representing Sarah Mitchell's appeal." My stomach dropped. "Send her in." Amanda Gray was in her 30s, professionally dressed, carrying a worn briefcase. She had kind eyes and a direct manner. "Mr. Thornwell, thank you for seeing me without an appointment." "What can I do for you?" "I'm working on Sarah Mitchell's appeal. I'm not here to waste your time arguing about guilt. She was guilty, and she knows it. But I am here to ask you about something that came up during my investigation." "What's that?" "The drug trial announcement. The one that triggered the final insider trading incident. I pulled the SEC filings, the press releases, the research documentation. Mr. Thornwell, that drug trial didn't exist. Morrison Pharmaceuticals never developed that cancer treatment. It was completely fabricated." I didn't respond. "You set them up," she continued. "You created fake information specifically to catch Sarah and Marcus trading on it, which means this wasn't about stopping ongoing criminal activity. It was about revenge. Can you prove that?" "Not yet. But I will. And when I do, Sarah's conviction might be overturned on entrapment grounds." "That's not entrapment. Entrapment requires law enforcement to induce someone to commit a crime they wouldn't otherwise commit. Sarah had already been leaking information for months. We just gave her one more opportunity to do what she was already doing." Amanda smiled. "You've talked to lawyers about this." "I am on the board of a major pharmaceutical company. I have many lawyers." "I'm sure you do. But here's the thing, Mr. Thornwell. I don't really care about the legal technicalities. I care about my client. And my client is a 29-year-old woman who made terrible mistakes, yes, but who's now sitting in federal prison while you're living in a penthouse and sitting on corporate boards. The punishment doesn't fit the crime, especially when the crime was partially orchestrated by the victim. What do you want from me?" "I want you to write a letter to the judge, supporting a sentence reduction, acknowledging your role in setting up the final incident, asking for leniency." "Why would I do that?" "Because somewhere inside you, David Thornwell is still David Worth, the man who wanted authentic love and honest relationships. That man wouldn't want Sarah to spend years in prison for failing his secret test." I stood up and walked to my window. 40 stories below, the city lights sparkled. "She sat on another man's lap at my birthday dinner," I said quietly. "She gave away my seat. She used me for 2 years, lied to me, betrayed me. And you want me to help her? I want you to be better than your worst moment, just like Sarah deserves a chance to be better than hers." Amanda left her card and walked out. I stood at that window for hours, watching the sun set, the lights come on, the city transform from day to night. And I thought about who I wanted to be. I didn't write the letter, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Days turned into weeks. Halloween passed. Thanksgiving approached. I hosted my first family gathering at the penthouse. My parents flew in. along with my younger sister and her kids. We had a chef prepare a huge meal. Everyone admired my apartment, my success, my new life. "I'm so proud of you," my mother said, hugging me, "finally stepping into your legacy." But that night, after everyone left, I sat alone in my enormous living room and felt more isolated than I ever had in my tiny studio apartment. At least then I'd had hope. Hope that Sarah was real. Hope that love could transcend money. Hope that I could be loved for who I was. Now I had everything and nothing. Uncle Rick invited me to his house for Christmas dinner. His family was warm and welcoming. His wife, his 3 kids, his grandchildren. They asked about my work, my hobbies, my plans. They included me in everything. But I could see the question in Uncle Rick's eyes. Where was my family? Where was my partner? Where was my life outside of work? On Christmas night, I drove home alone, and I made a decision. I called James Morrison, my lawyer. "David, Merry Christmas. I need you to do something for me. Name it. Sarah Mitchell, her appeal. I want to support it." Silence on the other end of the line. "David, are you sure? After everything she did?" "No, but I'm going to do it anyway. This could undermine the entire case. It could look like you're admitting." "I know what it could look like. Do it anyway." I hung up and sat in my apartment in the dark and waited for the regret to come. It never did. The letter took me 3 days to write. I went through 17 drafts, each one trying to balance honesty with fairness. "Dear Judge Anderson, I am writing regarding the case of Sarah Mitchell and her sentencing for securities fraud. I was the primary witness in this case, and I believe there are aspects of the situation that deserve reconsideration. While Sarah Mitchell is guilty of the crimes for which she was convicted, I must acknowledge my own role in the events that led to her final arrest. The fake drug announcement that triggered her last act of insider trading was created specifically to entrap her and Marcus Chen. While their prior activities were real and criminal, this final incident was engineered by me out of a desire for revenge rather than justice. Sarah betrayed my trust, humiliated me, and violated her professional ethics. But I responded by using my wealth and connections to ensure her maximum punishment. I set up an elaborate sting operation motivated not by a desire to stop crime, but by a desire to watch her suffer. This does not excuse her actions. She made her own choices, and she must face consequences. But the consequences should be proportional to her crimes, not amplified by my vindictiveness. I ask the court to consider reducing her sentence. 2 years in federal prison for a first-time offender who leaked information to a romantic partner rather than for personal financial gain seems excessive, particularly given my role in orchestrating the final incident. I don't ask for her to be released immediately. I don't ask for her conviction to be overturned. I only ask for fairness and proportionality. Sarah Mitchell made terrible mistakes. So did I. The difference is that I had the power to multiply her punishment, and I chose to use that power. I'd like to make a different choice now. Respectfully, David Thornwell. I sent the letter before I could change my mind. James called me an hour later. "Did you really just admit to orchestrating a sting operation for personal revenge?" "Yes." "Do you understand what this could do to your reputation, your position on the Morrison board?" "I don't care." "David, James, I spent 2 years pretending to be someone I wasn't so I could find authentic love. Then I spent 6 months being cruel and vindictive to punish someone for not loving me the way I wanted. I'm tired of pretending. This is who I am. someone who made mistakes and is trying to fix them. He sighed. You're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Maybe both. The story leaked, of course. Within a week, the media had it. Billionaire admits to revenge plot against ex-girlfriend. The think pieces came next. When does heartbreak justify destruction? The ethics of sting operations. A case study. Toxic relationships and millionaire vigilantes. The David Thornwell story. Some people praised me for taking responsibility. Others condemned me for admitting what I'd done. Most were just fascinated by the drama. The Morrison Pharmaceuticals board called an emergency meeting. David, Uncle Rick said, his face grave. What the hell were you thinking? Around the table, 11 other board members stared at me with varying expressions of confusion, disappointment, and anger. I was thinking that I needed to tell the truth, I said. The truth? Margaret Chen leaned forward. The truth is that you used this company's resources and reputation to execute a personal vendetta. You created fake press releases. You filed false documents with the SEC. You involved all of us in your revenge plot without our knowledge. That's not entirely accurate. Uncle Rick knew. Don't bring me into this, Uncle Rick said quickly. I helped you with a legitimate law enforcement operation. Or at least, that's what you told me it was. Fair point. You're right, I said. I used company resources for personal reasons. I put Morrison Pharmaceuticals at risk. I was wrong to do that without board approval, and I apologize. An apology isn't enough, said Marcus Hughes, the CFO. The SEC is now questioning whether our other filings are legitimate. Our stock price dropped 3% today on this news. Partners are asking questions. This is a disaster. Then let me resign, I said. The room went silent. David, Uncle Rick said carefully, you don't have to. Yes, I do. I was offered a seat on this board as a legacy from my grandfather, but I haven't earned it. I've been treating it as a toy, a distraction from my personal problems. This board deserves better. I stood up and placed my resignation letter on the table. Effective immediately, I'm stepping down from the board of Morrison Pharmaceuticals. I'll maintain my shares as a passive investor, but I'll have no role in company operations or decisions. Uncle Rick, thank you for believing in me. Everyone, thank you for the opportunity. I'm sorry I wasted it. I walked out before anyone could respond. In the elevator, I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from reporters, 17 text messages, and 1 email from Amanda Gray. The email read, Judge Anderson agreed to reconsider Sarah's sentence. Hearing scheduled for January 15th. Thank you. I closed my eyes and leaned against the elevator wall. I'd lost my board position, damaged my reputation, and possibly torpedoed my grandfather's legacy. But for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. January 15th was cold and gray, the kind of day that made you want to stay in bed. I put on a simple suit, not Tom Ford, just a decent, off-the-rack suit from Nordstrom, and drove to the courthouse in my Tesla. Sarah's resentencing hearing was scheduled for 10 a.m. I arrived at 9:30 and sat in the back of the courtroom, just like I had at her original trial. Amanda Gray saw me and nodded. A moment later, Sarah was brought in. She looked better than she had at the trial. Still thin, still tired, but there was something different in her eyes, something calmer. She saw me and froze. For a long moment, we just stared at each other across the courtroom. Then she mouthed 2 words. Thank you. The hearing began. Amanda presented my letter, along with additional character references, Sarah's clean disciplinary record in prison, and her completion of various rehabilitation programs. Your Honor, Amanda argued, Ms. Mitchell has taken full responsibility for her actions. She's not asking for exoneration or excuses. She's asking for proportionality. And given Mr. Thornwell's admission that the final incident was engineered specifically to entrap her, I believe a reduced sentence is appropriate. The prosecutor argued against it, but his heart wasn't in it. Even he seemed to think 2 years was excessive, given the circumstances. Judge Anderson took 15 minutes to deliberate. "Ms. Mitchell," he finally said, "you betrayed your profession, your clients, and your personal relationships. You made calculated decisions to break the law for personal gain. These are serious crimes." Sarah nodded, her head bowed. "However," the judge continued, "Mr. Thornwell's letter raises troubling questions about the proportionality of your sentence. While his sting operation doesn't excuse your prior actions, it does suggest that your final arrest was more about revenge than justice. Additionally, your behavior in prison has been exemplary, and you've shown genuine remorse." He paused. "Therefore, I'm reducing your sentence to time served plus 6 months. You'll be released at the end of June, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. The restitution order stands, but we'll work out a payment plan based on your actual earning capacity." Sarah started crying. Amanda hugged her. The courtroom buzzed with reactions. I slipped out before anyone could ask me questions. I spent the next few months rebuilding my life. Not as David Thornwell, billionaire board member, not as David Worth, humble software developer, just as David. A guy trying to figure out who he was and who he wanted to be. I started volunteering at a legal aid clinic, helping low-income clients with technology issues, setting up websites for their small businesses, securing their digital information, teaching basic computer skills. It was meaningful work, and nobody cared about my last name or my bank account. I joined a therapy group for people dealing with trust issues, sitting in a circle with 8 other people who'd been betrayed by partners, family members, friends. It was humbling. My story wasn't unique. Everyone had their own version of sitting in the corner while someone else took their seat. The difference was that most of them didn't have the resources to orchestrate elaborate revenge schemes. "What I'm hearing," my therapist said during one session, "is that you feel guilty about the power imbalance." "I do. Sarah did terrible things, but I had all the power. I could have just walked away, but instead I destroyed her life." "Did you destroy her life, or did she destroy her own life by committing crimes?" "Both can be true." "Yes, both can be true. But David, you're taking on responsibility for her choices. She chose to leak information. She chose to betray you. You didn't make her do those things." "No, but I chose how to respond. And I chose cruelty. And now you're choosing differently. That's growth." Was it growth? Or was it just more pretending? This time pretending to be a good person instead of pretending to be a poor person. I didn't have answers. June came. Sarah was released from prison. I didn't contact her, and she didn't contact me. According to Jennifer, who occasionally texted me updates, though we weren't exactly friends, Sarah moved back in with her parents and got a job at a non-profit legal aid organization. Ironic, given that she could never practice law again. "She asks about you," Jennifer texted one day. "She wants to know if you're okay." "Tell her I'm fine," I texted back. "Are you, though?" I looked around my penthouse. I'd sold off most of the expensive furniture and replaced it with comfortable, lived-in pieces. I'd donated half my designer wardrobe to charity. I'd downgraded from my Tesla to a reliable Toyota, not because I was pretending to be poor again, but because I didn't need all the expensive shit. It wasn't making me happy. "I'm getting there," I replied to Jennifer. August 15th, exactly 1 year after my disastrous birthday dinner. I decided to do something different this year. Instead of a restaurant, I rented out a rooftop space and invited actual friends, colleagues from my volunteer work, people from my therapy group, a few former co-workers from my software job who'd stayed in touch. 20 people showed up. We had pizza and beer, nothing fancy, and everyone brought their own chairs because I hadn't thought about seating arrangements. At one point, someone asked how old I was turning. 31, I said. 31! Someone else laughed. You're still a baby. Plenty of time to figure out your life. Yeah, I said, smiling. Plenty of time. As the sun set and the city lights came on, I stood at the edge of the rooftop and looked out over everything. 1 year ago, I was at my lowest point. Humiliated, betrayed, angry. Today, I was okay. Not perfect, not healed, but okay. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Hi, David. It's Sarah. I got your address from Jennifer. I hope that's okay. I wanted to send you a letter, but she thought texting might be less invasive. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, and I respect that, but I wanted to say thank you for what you did at my sentencing hearing. You didn't have to do that, especially after everything I put you through. I'm sorry for how I treated you. I'm sorry for the birthday dinner, the lies, all of it. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to be better. I hope you are too. Take care. S. I read it 3 times. Then I typed a response. Hi, Sarah. I appreciate you reaching out. I'm sorry too. For the revenge, for the sting operation, for using my resources to hurt you instead of just walking away. We both made mistakes. I hope you're doing well. I hope you find what you're looking for. Take care of yourself. D. I hit send and put my phone away. Everything okay? One of my friends asked. Yeah, I said. Everything's okay. And for the first time in a long time, I meant it. Epilogue. 3 years later. I was sitting in my office at Thornwell Digital Solutions, the company I'd started 2 years ago, focused on providing technology services to nonprofits and legal aid organizations, when my assistant buzzed. David, there's someone here to see you. Says she's an old friend. Does this old friend have a name? Sarah Mitchell. My heart jumped. We hadn't spoken since that text exchange 3 years ago, though I knew through Jennifer that she'd been doing well. She'd written a book about her experience with insider trading and the justice system. She'd become an advocate for prison reform. She'd rebuilt her life. Send her in? Sarah walked through my door, and I barely recognized her. She looked healthy, confident, at peace. She'd let her hair grow long again. She was wearing a simple dress and a genuine smile. Hi, David. Hi, Sarah. This is a surprise. I know. I'm sorry for showing up unannounced. I tried to email, but I wasn't sure if you'd respond. I would have. I wasn't sure. She sat down across from my desk. Your company has quite a reputation. I was reading about your work with legal aid clinics. You've helped hundreds of organizations improve their technology infrastructure. It's good work. It's more than good. It's redemptive. She paused. Which is actually why I'm here. The nonprofit I work for, Fair Justice Initiative, we're struggling with our database system. It's ancient, crashes constantly, and we're losing case files. We need help, but we can't afford typical consulting rates. Someone recommended Thornwell Digital Solutions, and then I realized it was your company. And you want to hire me? I want to hire your company, but I needed to see you first, to make sure it wouldn't be weird. I leaned back in my chair. Sarah, what happened between us, that was 3 years ago. We're different people now. Are we? I think so. I hope so. She nodded slowly. I'm engaged. To a teacher I met through the nonprofit. His name is Michael. He's kind and patient, and he knows everything about my past. I told him I was coming here today, and he said to tell you thank you.
Thank you for what?
For the letter. For giving me a second chance. He said anyone who'd admit their mistakes that publicly is someone worth respecting.
He sounds like a good guy.
He is. She smiled. What about you? Is there someone? Not yet. I'm still figuring out who I am outside of relationships, outside of money, outside of all the roles I've played.
That's healthy.
It's slow, she laughed. It was genuine, not that cruel laugh from 3 years ago. Well, if you ever want to grab coffee and compare notes on personal growth, let me know. I might take you up on that.
Good.
She stood up. So, about the database. Email my assistant. We'll set up a consultation. And Sarah, the first 6 months are pro bono. Call it my contribution to criminal justice reform.
David, you don't have to.
I want to. She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. Thank you. For everything. After she left, I sat at my desk and thought about the past 3 years. The revenge, the regret, the redemption. I'd wanted someone to love me for who I was, but I hadn't known who I was. I'd hidden behind money, then I'd hidden behind poverty, then I'd hidden behind anger. Now, finally, I was just me. David Thornwell. Not rich David, or poor David, or vengeful David. Just David. A guy who made mistakes and tried to fix them. A guy who got hurt and hurt others in return. A guy who learned, eventually, that being loved for who you are requires actually knowing who you are. I still didn't have all the answers. I still had bad days, lonely nights, moments of doubt. But I had something I didn't have 3 years ago. I had peace. And that was worth more than any seat at any table. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. Heard Sarah stopped by your office. Everything okay? Everything's fine, I texted back. Actually, everything's good. Proud of you, David. You grew up. I smiled. Yeah, I guess I did.